No one could have imagined that the boy growing up by the rusty train tracks would one day walk through the marble corridors of America's highest power. JD Vance did, even as the cost grew heavier each step and the past refused to remain silent. In Mamaw's kitchen, the crackle of the frying pan mixed with the muffled sound of the TV, while JD pressed his face against the window. Outside, fog swallowed the town, sirens howled, voices fought, and beer bottles lay forgotten on doorsteps. One voice inside told him to work harder, another whispered to give up. That night he could not sleep, the smell of cornbread mixed with doubt. What if I never escape this place? But he had no idea what was still waiting for him. Shame, more than ambition, pushed him forward. When the phone rang one night with the words, "It happened again," everything in his life split in two. His mother had overdosed. At 16, he decided he would no longer live this way. He clenched his fists on the kitchen table and whispered, "I will become someone else." That promise would both lift him and haunt him. The Marine Corps gave him structure, the weight of rifles, the metallic smell of oil, the sand grinding inside his boots became rituals. He learned to command his own body, to push further, to endure. At night, as the wind died down on base, he still heard his mother's fragile voice, "Don't leave me." He closed his eyes and told her, "I won't, but first I must save myself." Every evening he rewrote his letter to Yale. He did not call himself an exception. He called himself an example. When the acceptance came, his hands did not tremble. He told Mamaw, "I'm leaving." She looked at him and said, "Go, but don't forget yourself." He carried those words like a hidden compass when he walked through Yale's shadowed halls where polished shoes and perfect accents surrounded him. They asked, "Why are your people so angry? Why are they so poor?" He answered, "I will not give you geography, I will give you wounds." In the library, he wrote a note to himself, "If I ever tell this story, it will not only be mine, it will be for every silenced child." Fame arrived like a storm when he wrote his book. Hillbilly Elegy was meant as a personal reflection, but became a mirror for a divided nation. Critics twisted his words, cameras searched for every flaw, and a book of memories turned into a blade wielded by strangers. He wrote in his journal, "I opened a door, but I cannot choose who walks in." His past statements about Donald Trump resurfaced. Once he had tweeted he could not stomach Trump. Now he stood before the choice of embracing him or resisting him. Behind closed doors, Republicans pressed him to stay against Trump. Voters begged him to join him. He walked out of the room knowing his answer. It would either destroy him or make him. Trump endorsed him in Ohio, calling him the future of the Republican Party. The crowd roared, but minutes earlier, his phone had buzzed with a message from his mother, fragile yet recovering, asking, "Is this really who you are now?" That question stayed long after the applause ended. In Washington, every decision became a test. The first major vote was on cutting addiction programs. He remembered his mother's hollow eyes, the rehab center that gave her a second chance. When the clerk called his name, he said no. The chamber filled with whispers. He had broken ranks on his very first major vote. Later that night, his uncle called from Mamaw's old number. "She would be proud today," he said. Each step added new layers of identity. The boy who stole food, the Marine, the Yale graduate, the author, the senator. Sometimes he admitted, "I don't recognize myself." But Mamaw's voice returned. "Change is not betrayal if your values stay intact." Still, he wondered if his values had survived intact. During heated debates on immigration, he spoke of dignity earned through work and rules, words that surprised both allies and critics. In private, a Democratic senator told him, "My parents would have agreed with you, even if I don't." For a moment he felt a bridge had been built where none was expected. He returned quietly to Middletown each month, visiting diners, walking the same streets. A factory worker told him, he doesn't need to pretend to understand, he lived it. That authenticity remained his anchor. But when his mother relapsed after 16 years of sobriety, the crisis shook him. He left a crucial committee meeting to sit in the hospital waiting room until dawn. From that pain, he forged his first bipartisan bill on opioid prescriptions. It passed with wide support, proof that scars can become law and memory can become policy. Yet he remained polarizing. On cultural issues, he stood firmly conservative, drawing fire from progressives. He told audiences, problems are not solved by pure ideology, but by courage to take good ideas wherever they are found. That philosophy was tested when Trump himself asked him to support a bill that would harm Ohio's factories. After a 47-minute call, he told the Senate, "My loyalty is to the people of Ohio." He voted against it. Allies turned on him. Social media exploded. It seemed his career might be finished before it began. But then people in his hometown gathered outside his office with hand-painted signs reading, "Courage Matters" and "Ohio First." The pictures spread across the nation. Somehow, by defying the man who had lifted him, JD Vance looked even more authentic. At night, he visited Mamaw's grave and said, "I think I finally understand what you tried to teach me, about standing for something." In his private journal, he wrote, "Am I becoming what I once despised, or becoming who I was meant to be?" Contradiction defined him. He quoted Whitman, "I contain multitudes. America too was full of contradictions, and perhaps that is why his story resonated." One evening during a rally, shadows moved toward the stage. Security closed in, but JD stepped forward instead of back. He thought, fear sometimes means failing to stand still. The next day, headlines debated the scene, but he only remembered the eyes of a boy in the front row asking silently, "Do you see me?" "Yes," he whispered, "I see you." Later, in the quiet backstage, he wrote in his notebook, "Sometimes the hardest task is not choosing a side, but silencing your conscience." Tomorrow's vote loomed. He asked himself again, who am I speaking for? He kept driving back to his hometown, sitting in diners where people scolded him for changing. One man said, "You're just like the rest." JD answered, "I didn't leave you. I built a path to return." Back in Washington, he faced relentless pressure. Each phrase, each pause carried weight. A misstep could ignite a storm. He wrote, "Every word has an address, and I am responsible for where my words go." During a crucial committee meeting, he paused before pressing the button. His mind flashed images, his mother in recovery, factory workers, children waiting at home. He pressed no against party expectations. Whispers filled the chamber. He left with his heart pounding, but his conscience steady. Later, back in his office, he stared at Mamaw's photo and said, "I kept my spine today." He knew tomorrow would bring another test. He once told an audience, "If you cannot listen to people you dislike, you cannot serve the people you love." The line spread quickly, mocked by some, applauded by others. That night he wrote 3 words in his journal: listen, build, endure. His philosophy deepened. Power is not meant to be carried alone. He built bridges even as storms shook them. He admitted fear, admitted doubt, but refused to stop. When asked his greatest fear, he replied simply, "That I will forget what it was like to be hungry, to be scared, to feel the world was not built for people like me." He ended speeches reminding himself and others, the boy who had nothing now carries too much. The man who once had no choice now faces endless ones. The final chapter of JD Vance's story is still unwritten. He walked out into the rain one evening, lifted his face to the sky, and whispered, "I am ready." And as thunder rolled above Washington, he knew the next page was already waiting to be written.